Oh, welcome back for Game 2 of this semi-final, PTQ Liverpool for Dragon's Maze. John Malanaphy, said his name wrong, but close enough. Went a game up here against Andrew Quinn, but let's talk a little bit about the old sideboards here. What's John's going to be doing?
John's general plan in this matchup is going to be bringing in cards like Batterskull, Obstinate Bailiff probably, and he's going to have access to John Charm as well, which is going to clean up a lot of John's creatures that aren't called Tarmogoyf.
Now, it's funny how many people have the old one Batterskull in the sideboard, and yet, sure enough, turn 6, out it comes every single time.
Well, you gotta have it in your deck to draw it, haven't you?
And you can't really have 2 or 3 with the Bobs in your deck.
Yeah, true, you really don't want to be drawing 5s. Although he might sideboard Bob out in this matchup.
Yeah, he draws a burn spell, it's one less going to the face.
Yep, I mean Andrew there drew his lightning bolt there because he didn't throw it at the Noble Hierarch at the end of John's turn, so he managed to he's managed to take out the threat of a turn 2 Geist of Saint Traft at least. I suppose that's one thing that the John deck just really doesn't want to see in this matchup.
Very hard monster to deal with, especially when it's being followed up by some burn spells for whatever blocker you think you're going to put in the way of it.
Yeah, or a Path to Exile or something like that. It's that's basically the game plan of this Haunted Zoo deck for the most part.
Ride it to victory.
Yep, and you don't need to hit too many times
In
with
a way,
it.
it's similar to the Aura's deck in that respect. You know, you can make the one man and just sort of punch it through every turn.
Yeah, except that in this case, there's a lot more sort of active spells from the Haunted Zoo deck that it can draw. You know, whereas the Aura's deck draws, well, auras, because that's what it's called. The Haunted Zoo deck will be drawing
So
cards.
it's in a Goyf against 2 land here.
I think I'd be on the Goyf side in that.
Is Andrew Quinn one of these strange individuals that puts lands in front of spells?
I believe he is. He's an old school gentleman, shall we say. In with the Tarmogoyf. And yeah, Andrew's going to
How about no?
Yeah. How about Geist of Saint Traft there?
So that's the bad boy, that's what we want to see riding all the way here. But
So again, it looks like John had a sort of Mana Dork Tarmogoyf Geist of Saint Traft opening hand.
it's the draws you want, full of your monsters. So Andrew needs his Tarmogoyf himself.
Now Andrew took 2 off his land there and then made a Kitchen Finks going back up, so he does have red up, so he's certainly...
Very good card for this matchup, in fact. Having to double burn it out of the way is probably one of the most annoying things.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what John's 2 Path to Exiles in his deck are for. Path to Exile isn't really... I mean, yes, it's unconditional in a word removal, but it's really not the most optimal removal in the format because you just don't want to be giving your opponent land if you can avoid it. However...
And of course, in this case, you know, he doesn't have the Deathrite Shaman out, so he can't eat.
Yeah.
The Kitchen Finks after burning it.
Yeah, indeed.
And from coming back from Persist.
So with decks like Kicky Pod, etc. around, you need it. And we're rolling the dice, it's Bloodbraid Elf.
You're never sad to see a Bloodbraid Elf.
Into Path to Exile would be quite naughty here, but Lightning Bolt it is.
Now, he kind of has to point it at the monster, even though he doesn't want to.
I mean, it shrinks the monster for one thing, but... Yep.
You know, as much as you want to do it to the face, it's like you got to get the monster off eventually.
Yep. And attacking with just the Bloodbraid Elf here.
Andrew may feel, though, he's quite happy in a race at this point.
Really depends what the rest of his hand is here. I mean, he has the Raging Ravine, so he can certainly start turning that sideways if he wants to really up the damage quotient. That Geist of Saint Traft isn't doing a huge amount currently.
And that's basically because he's behind on life. You know, when you're ahead on life, you tend to sort of suicide your Geists in. You treat them as sort of chars to the face.
Yeah, I mean, all... oh, Bloodbraid Elf from Andrew, what's this one going to be?
Probably a Bob.
Deathrite Shaman.
Oh, well.
He's not...
when it's a 1-drop that's your best thing you want to see off a Blood Braid Elf.
Yeah, he's not going to be too sad, is he? And in for 3 with his Blood Braid Elf. And until now, all the damage that John had inflicted had been self-inflicted himself, but he's now on 10, having taken just 3 damage off a creature.
But that's what Shocklands do.
Yeah, it's been a very time-honoured tradition to lightning bolt yourself turn 1, hasn't it? Against a with a zoo deck, and John lightning bolts the Kitchen Finks out of the way, so that Kitchen Finks absorbed 2 lightning bolts there for the.
Interesting that the Deathrite Shaman's still about there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to swing a lot of the life totals back.
Yeah. I mean, if you're thinking how good that Kitchen Finks was, though, because he gained 4 life off it and it took 2 lightning bolts to kill it, so that's 10 damage that it's effectively prevented. I think Andrew's set up his Jund deck very well for that sort of thing. He's running, the main deck Kitchen Finks. He's also got the Obstinate Baloth in the board. He's really looking to draw into his life gain at this point, try and keep his life total as high as possible. I think he's pretty well set up.
Everyone has to have their anti-Liliana tech.
Yeah, I mean, Liliana's been fairly underrepresented in Standard, but as the formats grow older, when you get through Modern and Legacy, she just becomes more and more devastating the further back you go.
And having monsters that come into play when they're discarded, and monsters that come back from the graveyard when they're sacrificed.
Yeah, and obviously John has Lingering Souls as well to make Liliana's sacrifice effect not too relevant. You may possibly keep Liliana around anyway if you're playing Jund. If you do have her in your deck, you probably keep her around just because she can kill Geist of Saint Traft.
Yeah, and you can also set up situations whereby you can play her and use her immediately to get rid of stuff like Tarmogoyf, just kill all their other monsters.
Yeah. And obviously against the blue-white decks that we've seen a lot of at this PTQ, she's an absolute monster. I think if Jund makes a turn 2 Liliana against the vast majority of blue-white decks, the blue-white deck just folds pretty much on the spot to that.
And then of course we have big Liliana as well for the Tron players. 7 casting cost.
Yep, the old Khan. And another Blood Braid Elf from John here. This is pretty much the first game we've seen into Lingering Souls as well. This is pretty much the first game where we've seen Blood Braid Elf kind of do its thing. It's been a little.
We haven't seen a Blood Braid Elf into like Sword of War and Peace and then
no.
quit.
No, for the most part, this PTQ's been about Deathrite Shaman more than Blood Braid Elf.
But yeah, there's been some pretty sick Blood Braid Elves over the years.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we did see in round 3 we did see that Maelstrom pulse off the Blood Braid Elf that Levi managed to do, which was a little bit naughty. Looks like the Tarmogoyf, which is fairly substantial at this point, is just going to jump in front of the Geist of Saint Traft and kill it. And Andrew goes down to 6, which is a pretty precarious position to be in, especially facing down this many flyers.
And being a game down as well.
Yeah.
He kind of knows no mistakes from this point onwards.
Yeah, I believe he's going to eat the Lingering Souls at this point, is he? No, he's going to eat the Geist of Saint Traft. He needs the life, he feels, at this point. Which makes sense. I mean, he's probably going to take the Lingering Souls out anyway during his turn. Really depends on what he draws here. But he can certainly keep those spirits at bay for a little bit of time. I think John's thought process at the moment is something like tribal flames, tribal flames, tribal flames. Well, of course, John's on a low life total at the moment as well, thanks mainly to his own Shocklands. So, he's got to be a little bit careful, because that Raging Ravine can get out of control very quickly. And
doesn't need many swings to do that.
No. Although Lingering Souls can hold it at bay for some time. That's Fulminator Mage from Andrew, so he has actually, he's boarded in his Fulminator Mages as well, trying to go after John's lands, it looks like. Which does make sense because John is only running one of each shock, so he can certainly he can take John off certain colours in order to make his tribal flames not as damaging. And also, to be fair, you do have to cheat quite heavily on mana in order to get turn 2 Geist of Saint Traff, turn 3 Bloodbraid Elf into play. You're not going to win any services to not being greedy with your mana base.
The Haunted Zoo decks is indeed getting the mana base right.
Yeah.
It's knowing what shock land to go for on your first couple of turns so that you can perfectly curve out and not miss a drop.
Yeah, and you also need to know when you can go for basics as well.
It's a mistake a lot of people do make with that deck, going for the wrong shock turn 1. It can really screw things up.
Or just going for a shock sometimes when they don't need one, when a basic will be perfectly fine. Another Geist of Saint Traff from John, so he's putting the pressure on again. That is a very threatening looking board for someone who's on 8 life. And you also notice that Andrew used the...
He's also playing like it's 1997, where you cast your creatures before attacking. Maybe he's a Yu-Gi-Oh player or something like that.
The thing you will have noticed there is that Andrew used his Fulminator Mage when John went and got a Godless Shrine, making sure that he couldn't flash back his Lingering Souls. I think he's trying to use that Deathrite Shaman at the moment to stay as high on life as he possibly can, rather than attacking John's life total, although I'm sure that that'll change if John doesn't start putting a lot of pressure on. He gains another 2 life there. And we are just seeing, it's always amusing to me that we are now seeing a match between 2 hyper aggressive decks, and the card that's dominating the matchup's a 1-2 for 1.
And the games are going long because of it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we've seen some quick matches with both of these decks.
But, you know, the Zoo deck's a deck that's supposed to kill in the first 4 or 5 turns, optimally.
Deathrite Shaman really changes a lot of the decisions you had to make with the deck.
Yeah, I mean, not only does it make the Jund deck a turn quicker, it also gives it that longevity as well.
Yeah, it used to be a very much balls to the wall kind of deck.
Yeah.
You just, whatever you drew, you just played out. You just get it all on the table, get stuff swinging.
Yeah, cast Bloodbraid Elf when things look like they're going wrong and just recover from it. Andrew has drawn a lot of land in his deck here, but that Deathrite Shaman's just being shown. The fact that the Jund deck can also sink all its mana into its man lands makes it not the worst thing in the world for it.
Though we'd still rather be seeing some spells.
Yeah. Andrew activates Deathrite Shaman for mana there.
Just needs to get up to 10 mana for like a double Raging Ravine.
Double activation on Raging Ravine. Oh, that's Jund Charm. That's game over if... yeah. That is exactly what's happened. He cleaned up the board and took game 2 there.
So with all of John's creatures going away, he has to scoop up his cards, and we shall see what happens in game 3.